Bonjour à tous. Quelques petites annonces avant le début de l'enseignement. Donc les boîtes d'offrandes sont à votre disposition jusqu'à demain matin. Donc elles seront retirées demain matin à la pause à 11 heures. Première annonce. Deuxième annonce, vous aurez l'opportunité demain d'offrir une kata à Trinlay Rinpoche, demain à la fin de l'enseignement. Et donc il y aura une vente de kata demain matin à la pause à 11 heures. Demain à 11 heures, vente de kata. Troisième annonce, les programmes automne, hiver, printemps sont arrivés. Et donc pour les KTT, vous pouvez venir les retirer au secrétariat aujourd'hui à 14 heures et demain 14 heures. C'est de 14 heures à 15 heures aujourd'hui et demain au secrétariat pour les KTT. Dernière annonce, pour ceux qui veulent éventuellement visiter les résidences, le chantier des résidences de l'Institut. Donc en fait, les résidences de l'Institut, qu'est-ce que c'est ? Ça fait partie de l'infrastructure voulue par le Karmapa pour enraciner son activité en Europe, et donc qui propose une vie communautaire, communautaire partagée à court, moyen, long terme. Vous avez l'opportunité de visiter ces résidences, en tout cas le chantier, aujourd'hui à 17 heures. La visite, elle dure 3/4 d'heure. Donc rendez-vous, pour ceux que ça intéresse, à 17h moins 5, parce que ça commence à 17h pile. Vous avez le petit stand là-bas, le petit stand fundraising. Rendez-vous là-bas, prévoyez des chaussures fermées et sûrement un parapluie. Et je crois que c'est tout. C'est bon. Et oui, pour ceux qui n'étaient pas là hier, éventuellement, il y a aussi, dans le cadre des 50 ans d'ACPO, des projections, donc ça a commencé hier soir et encore ce soir, à 20h30, on projette des enseignements de Gyalwa Rinpoche pour commémorer son premier enseignement à DAKPO, sa première visite et enseignement en 81. Voilà, bel enseignement à tous. Pas de questions, hein, c'était clair, ça va ? Ok. Pardon, je me doutais bien que j'avais oublié quelque chose. Juste, vous savez, le centre fonctionne sur le principe du bénévolat, et donc votre aide est toujours la bienvenue en cuisine, à la plonge, à partir de 13h le midi, et le soir à partir de 19h30. Et pour la pluche des légumes aussi, de 18h à 19h. Donc plonge et pluche. Donc la plonge juste après les repas. Si jamais il y a un petit peu la queue, l'avantage, si vous faites la plonge, c'est que vous pouvez couper la file, manger en premier. Et voilà. Et donc pluche de 18h à 19h. Merci beaucoup. Ça, c'est quand tu te mets comme ça.
Ah ouais.
Moi, j'ai un œil dessus.
Ah ouais.
Mais si toi, t'y penses, c'est bien.
Ok. Donc, si j'appuie, ça va rester comme ça jusqu'à ce que j'appuie sur le bouton.
Exactement. Tu peux, si jamais t'as un doute que t'as appuyé, de réappuyer dessus.
Ok.
Bonjour. Je vous prie tout d'abord de bien vouloir m'accompagner dans la prise de refuge, la génération de la bodhicitta, suivie du développement des 4 incommensurables et de la louange à Manjushri. Sanje chodan tsoje chonam la chanju pardo dane chamsu che dage jinso jibe sanam che rola benchra sanje dro parsho sanje chodan tsoje chonam la chanju pardo dane chamsu che dage jinso jibe sanam che rola benchra sanje dro barsho sanje chodan tsoje chonam la chanju pardo dane chamsu che dage jinso jibe sanam che rola benchra sanje dro parsho semje tamje dewa tan deve jodan dembar churchi dongar tan dongar che jodan trawar churchi dongar mebe dewa tamba tam hendrawar churchi nyering chadan dan trawe tanyom chenpo la nebar churchi semchen tamche dewa dan deve jodan dembar churchi dongar dan dongar che jodan trawar churchi dongar mebe dewa tamba dan mendrawar churchi nyering chadan dan trawe tanyom chenpo la nebar churchi chomden de jambe yang lai chan tsai lo kange lo dren nye dren nye dra nam da ram sar chi nye tungen chi jen si je ni che to gra le bam zen kanda se be zan ra ma re men tu ma dong ra chi sar Rozo gun la bujie dar zen yen la zhu jue yang den song zhu dar che zhu nyu mo ni long le jie jia zhu zhu zi jie. Ma ri mu se dung re nyu gu chi ni jun zi ra zhe nam de ne da jian sa ju tar sun yin de ne lu zo yer se tu yu ku. Ju ta ju dan ju ni jian zhe la lu mu se ren jian bei yang la du zi den chu jie qian ra wu zi ri jie da lu de mu men ba ram se ren. Ga dan den ju xiong lu do wa ye lu zhu bo bian na wa zi du su.
We continue this morning with our study of the text, which is entitled the Songchu Chepe Munglam Padra Chari Panidana Raja. The King of Wishing Prayers. There are various translations of the title. Currently, in French, it's the translation of Carré. In English, we're working with the translation in, I believe it's Pamela Gale White's translation. We begin with reverence, offering, purification of negative karma, rejoicing, acquisition of merit, acquiring merit through request and prayer, and at the end, dedication of all of the merit. This makes up the 12 first verses, and then the second part, which is the longest part, is the aspiration prayers. And we looked yesterday at stanzas 13 and 14. I believe we've reached stanza 15. May each and every one of the manifold beings of the 10 directions always be happy and healthy. May all beings find true purpose in the Dharma, and in harmony with this, may their hopes be fulfilled. The two previous verses, where we offer our merit to the Buddhas and to those who are on the verge of becoming Buddhas, who through our merit that is offered may promptly become Buddhas. And then this merit is dedicated to the container, to the fact that the different worlds, universes, develop, purify, become purified from all their flaws. Now, the merit is particularly dedicated to the well-being of sentient beings. As before, we saw that all beings that inhabit all regions of space, as we saw before, atop each atom there are as many Buddhas as atoms in the universe, etc. wherever there are beings, all of these beings without exception,
Vous m'entendez bien? Et donc, ici aussi, sans aucune exception.
and here without a single exception, without any discrimination, whether they are human beings, animals.
Donc ici, si l'on suit la présentation
If we follow the presentation
dans les textes bouddhiques,
in the Buddhist texts, we can find
la description de 6 classes
the description of 6 classes of beings.
les êtres qui sont dans la classe
Beings in the divine class of beings, devas,
etc.
asuras,
Les humains,
and then we find humans,
les animaux,
animals,
et ensuite vous avez encore d'autres êtres sensibles.
and there are still other types of sentient beings whose experience is more painful and difficult than what humans and animals experience. Beings that we call pretas, often called hungry spirits, and naraka, beings of the hell realms, which can be hot or cold. All of the beings of these 6 classes of beings.
Ça inclut les extraterrestres aussi.
This includes aliens too.
C'est pas simplement les êtres de notre planète.
It's not only the beings of our planet.
Le forme de vie,
Whatever the life form may be,
il peut s'apparenter à
it can be categorized within one of these 6 classes. The divine class of beings is characterized by greater happiness and ease, enjoyment, sense pleasure, etc.
les asuras
The asuras have somewhat similar conditions, but they notably experience the harmful emotion or affliction that predominates for the gods is pride. The one that predominates for the demigods or asuras is jealousy. Despite the fact that they have quite good conditions, their conditions are not as good as those of the gods, and thus they are jealous.
chez les humains,
For humans,
c'est quoi?
what do you think it is?
C'est le désir.
It's desire attachment. We always want more. Consumption, sorry. Consumerism, we could even say. For animals, moha, stupidity. They're not as clever as humans, and notably they have difficulty or even they don't have the ability to understand or practice the Dharma. This doesn't mean that the other types of afflictions aren't present. This just refers to the predominant affliction. Gods also have desire, they also experience irritation, etc., but much less. And then concerning pritas, greed, avarice is the predominant experience. For hell beings, anger, hatred. So all of these beings throughout the 10 directions, to all of these beings throughout the 10 directions, I offer my merit, past, present, and all merit that I will accumulate henceforth, as well as my person, my belongings. I dedicate it. I offer it to all beings without any exception or discrimination, so that my merit, person, and belongings serve toward the fact that all beings be happy, healthy, free of illness, free from disappointment and suffering, and be free as well, due to my merit, from the cause of suffering, in other words, afflictions and karma, and thus being free from the suffering of the existence in samsara, and free from the causes for existence in samsara, may they know the mental and physical happiness that is perfect. And may my merit also contribute to the fact that their aspirations in accordance with the Dharma be realized. That any project imagined by beings in relation to practicing the Dharma may come true. May each and every one of the manifold beings of the 10 directions always be happy and healthy. May all beings find true purpose in the Dharma, and in harmony with this, may their hopes be fulfilled. That's the meaning here. That all beings who wish to attain enlightenment and to go beyond suffering may do so, thanks to the gift of my merit, this merit that I am dedicating to them. Here, these 3 verses that we've looked at rely on love and kindness. Kindness, Maitri, is defined as the intention to acquire happiness for those who do not have it. And compassion is the intention of dissipating the suffering that beings are afflicted with. Based on these 2 attitudes, which are, of course, cultivated in a universal way, in other words, without any discrimination or preference, we then express these 3 wishes, the wishes that have been presented in these 3 stanzas, these 3 verses that we've just looked at. Then comes a series of wishes that are associated with never turning away from bodhicitta, that from life to life we never forget the thought of enlightenment, and we never stray from or become separate from the thought of enlightenment. May I carry out the many forms of enlightened conduct and remember past lives when experiencing each new one. During each successive death, transmigration, and rebirth, may I always embrace religious life and renounce. Jongchu Chipa Tani Ndachaching, Troa Kuntu Kyawa Chanparkur, Serab Kuntu Chipo Chewana, Tatu Tani Rabtu Jongwar Sho. Rinpoche is reading in Tibetan. I do my best. In order to accomplish the benefit of sentient beings, which is our goal, our ultimate project, and all of this in the context of the practice of bodhisattvas, our goal is not simply for ourselves to know reality, but to make it so that all beings may also observe reality and become free from confusion, afflictions, suffering, be free from all unhappiness. This is our ultimate objective. But in order to accomplish this objective, to realize this objective, it is necessary for us to have the capacity and the capacity to help beings can only be acquired through progressing ourselves toward enlightenment. Attaining perfect enlightenment depends, and the primary cause of it, we can say, on bodhicitta. It's necessary for us to generate bodhicitta. If we have not generated bodhicitta, then we cannot progress toward enlightenment. If we do not progress toward enlightenment, then we cannot help other sentient beings. And so it is, therefore, essential for one who aspires to the bodhisattva path, who aspires to the well-being, the benefit of all beings. We cannot skimp on, we might say, bodhicitta. We must necessarily have bodhicitta. It's necessary to generate bodhicitta. When bodhicitta has been generated, then it is necessary to make sure that bodhicitta progresses, increases, grows. And they need to apply themselves to the practice or conduct that allows for improving and perfecting bodhicitta. The wish here is, may I never be separated from the practice of the bodhisattvas. May I never be separated from bodhicitta and the practice of bodhicitta, and this regardless of the circumstances I may find myself in. Even if I am reborn as a human, as a god, wherever I may be reborn, may I immediately remember the practice of the bodhisattvas. May I remember bodhicitta. This is the first point among the wishes. May I carry out the many forms of enlightened conduct, it says in the stanza, and remember past lives. Wherever, in other words, wherever I may take birth, may I there remember the practice of the bodhisattvas. Regardless of the conditions of my rebirth, may I recall bodhicitta and the practice of the bodhisattvas. And remembering in this way, may I, over the course of my deaths and rebirths, always embrace holy life, religious life. In other words, from lifetime to lifetime, up until I attain perfect enlightenment, throughout all of my rebirths to come, may I always attain, in the translation here, it says religious life. This means, may I, from lifetime to lifetime, always have access to the condition of ordination. May I obtain favorable conditions for practicing Dharma. The most favorable conditions for practicing Dharma are, of course, the condition where we have received ordination first of refuge, then lay disciplines, the Patimoksha vows, and then ordination of a bhikshu, may I have the conditions to be able to acquire ordination, monastic life, and then, of course, on the path of the bodhisattvas, to be able to acquire the disciplines of a bodhisattva. The idea here is, so long as I have not attained the grounds of realization of the bodhisattvas, may my progress toward enlightenment from lifetime to lifetime never be hindered by ordinary life. In other words, what is the opposite of the life we engage in Dharma, an ordained life, a life of a practitioner, even a lay practitioner? The opposite of this is worldly life, where we're just dedicated to our family, work, daily life, etc. All of this is a lot of time spent not progressing toward enlightenment, and during which we are preoccupied with the idea of self, what belongs to us, rivalry with others, and we're not experiencing favorable circumstances for practice. So here the wish is, not only may I remember bodhicitta from lifetime to lifetime, but may I always find myself in circumstances where I am not hindered by worldly preoccupations, and may fully focus on, fully consecrate myself to the practice of enlightenment. And that's the essence of this wish. And then the second point associated here is following the example of the victorious ones, may I fully accomplish excellent conduct, and may my moral behavior be flawless and pure. May I conduct myself faultlessly in all situations. This is the aspiration that my merit, as I have dedicated it to all sentient beings, and in order to help all sentient beings, I wish never to be separated from the practice of bodhisattvas. So I also dedicate my merit so that from lifetime to lifetime I may always remember bodhicitta, the vow that I made when taking bodhisattva disciplines, and also may I not only remember but also find favorable circumstances. May I never be hindered by outer circumstances. May I always gather favorable circumstances so that from lifetime to lifetime I can practice once again. And not only this, I also dedicate this merit so that my conduct may be perfect. This is the second point here, connected with the practice of bodhisattvas. So, may I practice according to the example of the bodhisattvas. Meaning here, from lifetime to lifetime, throughout all my lifetimes, may bodhicitta in aspiration and bodhicitta in action be generated. May I follow the example of all the victors, which is a title, the victorious ones, another name for the Buddhas. May I follow the example of the Buddhas. May I also perfect Samantabhadra's conduct. correct conduct through perfection, and by relying on Shila, ethical discipline, what's translated here as moral behavior. This ethical discipline has three forms. Ethical discipline, which is avoiding carrying out harmful acts. The ethical discipline of accomplishing or acquiring the qualities that we don't have, perfecting the qualities that we already have. And the third aspect, the ethical discipline of accomplishing the benefit of beings. All practices can be summarized within these three types of ethics. So may I fully accomplish this discipline without this commitment being stained by personal interest. In other words, when I practice ethical discipline, may it be motivated by bodhicitta, by loving kindness, and not by something for me, myself. And may my practice of ethical discipline be free of afflictive obscurations such as pride. Sometimes when we have an ethical discipline, we may think, oh, well, I have received certain disciplines, this other person hasn't, so I'm better. So this is a type of afflictive obscuration. May I also adopt ethical discipline through practice that is perfect, but as opposed to that is kind of halfway practice or filled with flaws, with infringing upon my discipline. The idea here is to have ethical discipline that is completely free from flaws. Here, this is particularly an aspiration connected with bodhicitta in action. I dedicate my merit so that relative bodhicitta in action may be truly adopted. And then comes the aspiration to accomplishing the benefit of beings through teaching. This is also associated with the practice of recalling bodhicitta from lifetime to lifetime. Stanza 18. May I communicate the Buddha Dharma in every language known to sentient beings, the tongues of gods, nagas, jinns, trolls, and all languages spoken by humankind.
게단 로당 느진게 주범다다 미게남다 로와 근치라게 지삼바 탐지게도 다게 추던도
Here I dedicate merit so that from lifetime to lifetime I may always not only have access to the Dharma, remember my practice, and apply it correctly, but so that I may also share my knowledge of the Dharma and teach the Dharma. And this, in every language, in every type of expression, may I teach the Dharma. As the text says, the languages of gods, nagas, jinns, trolls, and all human languages, may I teach the Dharma. I aspire to this. So regardless of the type of life I experience in rebirth, human, animal, etc., may I, according to that species and that region, in the language that's used there, express the Dharma. So here this particularly concerns aspiring to sharing the teachings of the Great Vehicle and aspiring to the fact that the teachings of the Great Vehicle may spread. This is the third cause for not forgetting bodhicitta from lifetime to lifetime. And then comes the following stanza. Stanza 19, I believe. Gentle and wise, may I apply myself to the transcendent qualities of the paramitas while never losing sight of awakening mind. As for all harmful acts that have resulted in veils, may they be entirely purified without exception. So the first two lines of this stanza these first two lines here, gentle and wise, may I apply myself to the transcendent qualities of the paramitas while never losing sight of awakening mind. This point concerns aspiration to, or so that the specific qualities of the bodhisattvas that I aspire to, who I am among due to my practice, may the qualities of these bodhisattvas never leave me. So what are the specific qualities of a bodhisattva? Tenderness, compassion, courage, all of these qualities are present for a bodhisattva and are cultivated. We cultivate loving kindness, compassion, everything we've gone over. And as we familiarize ourselves with these qualities, then these qualities are ever more present within our mind stream. And we make the wish here that these qualities never disappear, that they always be present from lifetime to lifetime. Of course, we can talk about a very large number of qualities of the bodhisattvas, but the primary quality is maitrī, universal friendship for all sentient beings, affection that bodhisattvas experience for all sentient beings without exception. This quality, we wish that this quality never leaves us. And that we have this quality and these qualities, and that due to this may bodhicitta never leave us, and likewise the practices associated with bodhicitta. This refers to the 6 paramitas. The paramitas that I have already become familiar with and that I am used to practice, may I never lose these good habits, and in terms of the qualities that I have acquired, may I also improve them, and concerning the qualities I have not yet acquired, may I obtain them. For example, if I have a certain disposition toward generosity, may I never lose this disposition towards generosity, but rather maintain this, and also may generosity increase, may it become stronger and grow until there is no limit to my generosity, until I may become the manifestation of generosity and kindness itself in all of my actions, etc. This is an example in relation to the paramita of generosity, to perfect it also through associating it with wisdom. But perhaps I am inclined toward generosity, but perhaps for the moment I have very little endurance, perseverance. And when I'm facing an adverse situation, I'm easily irritated. So maybe I can be generous but not very patient. Maybe I can be generous but not very determined. Maybe I lack discipline. Maybe I'm generous but I'm somewhat lacking in ethical discipline. Maybe I have all these three but I am not diligent. I'm easily discouraged. The idea here is that the qualities that have been acquired, I would like to keep them, and those that I have not acquired, I would like to acquire them and continue improving from lifetime to lifetime. The idea of the acquired qualities is not simply to keep them, but in addition to retaining them, we perfect them. We raise them to excellence. And then
On se tient au chaud. Ensuite, c'est parti.
Then, concerning all my harmful acts that have resulted in veils, may they be entirely purified without exception. Here, negative acts, harmful acts, what are they? For a bodhisattva, this refers to conduct that is the opposite of a bodhisattva's precepts. In other words, actions, mental actions, thoughts, but also verbal and physical actions that are the opposite of bodhisattva's discipline, that result in losing the bodhisattva disciplines. In other words, flaws in the precepts, such as ignorance, afflictive obscurations. All of these veils, like false views, for example, fictive or false conceptions arise in our minds and we are inclined to believe them. For example, the belief in me, myself, my superiority, or eternalistic or annihilationist views, or views that reject the causality between our actions and our future, the various afflictions. We wish to be free from all of these veils. In short, everything that is an obstacle, a hindrance to my commitment to the bodhisattva path and my progress on the bodhisattva path, may all of these obstacles be removed, eliminated. So here, this is a dedication of merit, our merit, so that the obstacles to the practice of the bodhisattvas may be eliminated. And this concerns these 5 points associated with never forgetting the practice of bodhisattvas from lifetime to lifetime. The aspiration that from lifetime to lifetime we remember the bodhisattva path, and the conduct of bodhisattvas, and that the favorable conditions such as ordination and access to a life in accordance with the Dharma be possible, aspiring to never turn away from ethical discipline, that I may share the Dharma of the Great Vehicle, that I may constantly engage in the practice of the paramitas, and that I be free from obstacles to the path of bodhisattvas. These are the 5 wishes, the 5 specific wishes in relation to our continual engagement from lifetime to lifetime and not forgetting the practice of bodhisattvas from lifetime to lifetime. Then we come to the 20th stanza. May I be liberated from negative karma, disturbing emotions, and the actions of Maras. Wherever there are world systems and beings, may I be like the lotus not clung to by water, and the sun and the moon unhindered in the sky. Here, we make the wish to be able to apply ourselves to practice without this practice ever being hindered. From lifetime to lifetime, when I am born again and again within samsara, as one who aspires to the bodhisattva path and generating bodhicitta in aspiration and in action, may I be free from the stains of the afflictions, which, for example, including attachment, craving, grasping, what we find in the 12 links of dependent arising. May I be free from karma, free from the stains of karma, free from attachment, free from all obstacles as well, from everything that may harm me or be an obstacle. Free from those who may harm me or even those who may wish to help me, but in doing so harm my progress on the path of the bodhisattvas. So may I be free from all of these obstacles and hindrances. May these obstacles not hinder my path toward enlightenment. That is the first part of the wish that is illustrated here by the image of a lotus. It is a flower that's born from the mud without being soiled by it. In the same way, a bodhisattva wishes to be in the world, in samsara, in order to help beings. Just like the lotus is in the mud without being soiled by it. In the same way, a bodhisattva wishes to be reborn in the world again and again without being soiled by the afflictive obscurations, by attachment, and without anything hindering their practice. And then a second aspect here. Not only do I aspire to being unstained or unsoiled by these hindrances, but also that, motivated by love and compassion for all beings, all sentient beings, may I be reborn to accomplish the benefit of beings through the power of love and compassion. May I be reborn again and again and accomplish the benefit of beings without ever experiencing any hope of something for myself. May I do so freely. I wish to be reborn in samsara again and again to help beings. The idea is, pro bono, we could say. A bodhisattva is the slave of all beings. But it is a slave deliberately. It is their choice. This is the second point, illustrated by the second image here, and the image of the sun and the moon. And the sun and the moon unhindered in the sky. These celestial bodies that travel through the sky without any obstacle. The image of the sun and the moon is that the benefit that they give is given entirely freely. We don't have to offer a coin somewhere so that the sun continues to shine. There are altars. Sometimes you have to put in a coin so that the lights go on on the altar, and after a few minutes the light goes out. You have to put another coin in. But in terms of the sun, whether you're a millionaire, whether you're poor, everyone has access to the sun. It's free. And the sun isn't keeping accounts. The idea is that bodhisattvas work for beings in the same way, constantly, and completely freely, without any wish of something in return. And so we make this wish, may my conduct be the same. May it be like the lotus, being in the world without being affected by it, without falling into confusion, afflictions, or ignorance. And also, like the sun, may it be accomplished without any hope or wish of something for myself. May I simply accomplish the benefit of sentient beings. Likewise, the sun and the moon never get tired of shining. They never think, oh, I need to take a vacation. It's been a long year. Producing the vacation time, summertime for the French, for the vacationers. The sun never thinks that. And likewise, one who aspires to the path of the bodhisattva never thinks, oh, I've done too much. I need to take a vacation. Never gets tired. This is also illustrated by this second image. The commentary here explains that wishes here concern this period of aspiration. We can distinguish for a bodhisattva the time period where a bodhisattva is an aspiring bodhisattva. They've acquired the bodhisattva disciplines and they've generated aspiring bodhicitta in application, in aspiration and in action, but they are not yet fully a bodhisattva because they haven't acquired the first bodhisattva ground, which corresponds to the path of seeing and seeing emptiness. And once a bodhisattva has done this, they are in effect a bodhisattva. But prior to this, it is a period of aspiration. And during this time, the stains that we have talked about are in a certain way unavoidable because we have not yet attained realization of emptiness. Ignorance is therefore still present within our mind stream, and due to this, afflictive obscurations are manifest, attachment is manifest. We can't completely avoid them, but the wish here is that all of this does not create obstacles, that despite the presence of all this, may I not be hindered, slowed down by it, may it not cause me to stray. The commentary adds, this simple fact is not found only among those who aspire to the bodhisattva path. It is also found among the practitioners of the Shravakayana. In other words, they also for them as well, these stains are not an obstacle to their path. Here, the particularity of the bodhisattva's aspiration is not experiencing fear or tiredness, but to be reborn and again to aid sentient beings. This point is specified within the commentary. So now we come... Oh, let's take a break now. So you can think about the points that we've covered.
O sanje chodan soje chonam la chanju pardo dane jams dage jinso jimbe sun rola penchra sanje shu chodan soje chonam la chanju pardo dane jams che dage jinso jimbe sunam chi rola penchra Sanje drobar sho sanje chodan soje chonam la chanchu pardo dane jamso che dage jinso jibe sanam che rola penchra sanje drobar sho. Bien, bonjour.
Hello again. I was thinking perhaps we could consecrate this session to discussion if you have questions. One of the first wishes that was expressed earlier, I don't recall the stanza number, said, regardless of our conditions of rebirth, to continue practicing bodhicitta. I thought that was somewhat paradoxical because earlier you talked about animals and said that they were stupid, and so is it compatible expressing this wish? Yes, it's entirely compatible. Of course, we don't wish to be reborn as animals. This wish doesn't exclude that possibility. Perhaps we have a very negative karma that pushes us toward animal condition. But if we have taken refuge, if we have truly generated bodhicitta, this hinders animal rebirth if we practice correctly. But if ever this came to be, if we have bodhicitta and through these wishes, we wish not to be hindered by this condition, that despite this condition, may we recall bodhicitta. And there are animals that express kindness. We say that the predominant affliction for animals is stupidity, meaning that they are not able to question their way of perceiving reality. But this stupidity is also present for humans, but we have a bit of a possibility to take a step back, to gain some perspective. But it doesn't happen for every human. It's not simply because we're human that we're free from stupidity. It's not reassuring, but I hope that answered your question. My question is in regards to what you evoked this morning, that perhaps the most beneficial reincarnation to wish for would be to be a nun, and that the most difficult is to be involved in daily life because we could be carried away by everything that happens. And I mean, I have my own idea of this, but I would like for you to share your opinion on this. Isn't the most important our inner disposition? Maybe a nun could also get carried away by daily life, and someone who is in an ordinary kind of daily life could be focused on practice. The idea of the paramitas is to be in action, and it seems to me that when I am in action, the most important is to remain vigilant from within, to take care that the emotions don't arise at this time. It seems like superficially what's said is that the most ideal is to be a nun, and having a regular life is less favorable. But I was wondering. I'll come back to the stanza, the verse in question. I think your stanza, the stanza that you're referring to is, let me find it. May I carry out the many forms of enlightened conduct and remember past lives when experiencing each new one. During each successive death, transmigration, and rebirth, may I always embrace religious life and renounce. It's an aspiration, it's a prayer that we dedicate, that we wish for this to be realized. From my point of view, it's more in the sense of in this life, I've taken bodhisattva vows for the first time, perhaps. I'm accomplishing a lot of merit. I'm going to die. And at the moment of death, often when we are reborn, there is some kind of amnesia that occurs. We don't remember who we were, what we've done, etc. We can imagine, okay, I won't remember that I've taken bodhisattva vows. But when we take bodhisattva vows, we take them from this moment until we attain enlightenment. It's not a wish made just for this lifetime. It's a commitment that I make for all of my future lifetimes. It's a very, very strong, deep commitment. We cultivate bodhicitta every day. We generate loving kindness. We push ourselves to make this effort all the time. And we also express prayers as they're expressed here, that from lifetime to lifetime, due to the fact that I accomplished these meritorious practices today, and due to the power of these practices that I dedicate to many different things, well, really to one thing, to the enlightenment of all beings, but I'm going into detail about how in this practice. And one of these practices concerning how I can contribute to the enlightenment of all beings is one of the required conditions is that I can recall bodhicitta. So I dedicate merit so that I may recall bodhicitta. And due to this, we recall bodhicitta from lifetime to lifetime. It is something that is possible. So, without any pretension, I have few qualities, but from my personal experience, I can say that we remember bodhicitta from lifetime to lifetime. It's not something we forget. When I was little, I was identified as a tulku. I don't remember who I was. I don't remember people or places. The only memory that I have is that of bodhicitta. And so it's something that we can remember. If we practice now, it's certain that in your next life, you'll be able to remember bodhicitta.
Pas simplement cela,
Not only that, but also
les circonstances favorables peuvent se réunir, c'est
favorable circumstances can come together so that we may be able to commit to the path, take bodhisattva vows once again, practice. The way it's expressed here, religious life,
la vie simple avec
may I always embrace religious life. In Tibetan, it's raptuchua, ordination. It can be householder disciplines. It can be bodhisattva disciplines. The meaning is that I may be in contact with the teaching of the Dharma, that I may completely consecrate my life to Dharma practice.
cela aussi est
And this is also something that is entirely possible. If I look at my own experience, personal experience again, I was born to French-American parents who didn't know anything about Buddhism, but all of the circumstances came together so that I could commit to the path of the Dharma. And when we think about it, it's almost, how could we say it? It's almost surreal. It's not the normal order of things, and yet it's something that's possible due to the power of merit and dedication. And so I aspire that from lifetime to lifetime, may I meet with the Dharma again and again. And the more that bodhicitta is present, the more that our commitment to the path of Dharma is strong, then the less we are hindered by things. Being hindered by things isn't necessarily related to the circumstances. You can be in a cave. I think there was a disciple of Patrul Rinpoche. In any case, there was a practitioner who stayed in a cave for many years, and since he never encountered anyone, he never got angry. He thought, okay, hatred no longer arises in me. My practice has been very efficient. I've removed hatred. He went to see his master and said, I've removed hatred. And then the master said, oh, very good. And then the master started insulting him, and the practitioner got angry. And the master said, there's hatred. It was just dormant. So eliminating afflictions is not that simple. It's not just a condition or circumstances or the way you're dressed or the way you live that makes it that we no longer experience afflictive obscurations. It's about whether or not we have truly generated bodhicitta, whether or not we manage to recognize first within the afflictions that they are poisons and try to remedy them. And then once this is done, then regardless of the circumstances, we truly practice. Practice isn't people imagining themselves practicing how they could imagine practice in Buddhism, the way they might imagine practicing another religion. It's not about adopting the customs of a culture. It doesn't mean taking this sacrament. It doesn't mean having your marriage a certain way, being baptized a certain way, going on pilgrimage. But that has nothing to do with discerning reality, with dissipating all of the afflictions in our minds. Perhaps there are certain partial parts of aspects for people who are very engaged within their religion, then there might be a little bit of dissipating afflictions. Or there might be some small aspect of trying to discern ultimate reality, but it's very vague and confused. It's not very clear. In the Buddhist teachings, the essence is this, as I said earlier, eliminating ignorance, observing reality as it is, without adding anything, without taking anything away, without distorting it, without adulterating it in any way. If the reality is observed, then in this observation of reality, there's no self-grasping, no grasping of duality, no grasping of desire, no hatred, aversion, no karma being produced, no becoming, no unhappiness. If we don't observe reality, we only observe a fiction, then there is self-grasping, the afflictions are present, karma is present, disappointment, unhappiness, pain, all of that is possible. I hope that illuminates things a bit. Hello Rinpoche, thank you very much. I was wondering, once masters, bodhisattvas have realized emptiness and have gone beyond ignorance, can ignorance arise again? Normally, and here it's important not to in terms of reality, meaning when we realize the first bodhisattva ground and we realize emptiness directly, there's no loss of this realization. Normally, there is no loss of this realization. But there are people who culturally in the Buddhist world who are presumed to be bodhisattvas who have attained the first bodhisattva ground, but not being clairvoyant, we can't see their minds whether or not they have really attained it. And we'll look at their behavior. And if they express afflictions, pride, etc., then perhaps they aren't indeed realized, even though we have attributed certain realization to them. When we choose someone to be our master, our teacher, it is important to be critical, not to be credulous. Not to simply look and say, oh, they've got a title, they're Rinpoche, they're a reincarnate master, they're already a living Buddha, and attribute all kinds of qualities to them, and to confuse our attraction for the person. And this is not a relationship of Dharma. We won't be able to learn anything. The first criteria is, do they have knowledge? If we're going to study with someone, we want to acquire knowledge. If they don't have that knowledge, then how could they transmit it? So, for someone to have knowledge, they need to have a history of studies that they need to have trained, so that they can be able to teach you. If they have these qualities, then they have the quality to be able to teach you. But that's not the only thing. It's also necessary that they have not only knowledge, but experience of what they're teaching, that they've practiced, that he has experience of the teaching that they're giving. So that's a very good criteria. And additionally, they need to teach in a way that is truly from kindness, not for personal gain. So if there are these criteria, well, there are many other criteria given in the text for choosing a master, but if you've found these three, today it's very difficult to find teachers who fulfill these three criteria. So if you find one who fulfills these three criteria, you found an excellent teacher who can teach you. And even if they only have one or two of these qualities, you can still learn something. But if you have all three, then they're really an excellent teacher. It's necessary to have something of a critical approach. Don't be too naive. There's another flaw that can occur where you find a teacher of quality, but then your pride takes over, nevertheless, and you don't listen to them. That's a shame. You're missing out on something very precious. So there's a certain point where we need to be critical, and then after, there's another time where we need to really apply ourselves to studying, to trying to understand the teaching, and to applying it. It's important not to think, some people think that they need to always be close to their teachers, that they need to have a relationship with them. No, it's not at all like that. Some examples that we find in history of our own lineage. A great disciple of the second Karmapa, Karmapakshi, who was already a very studied practitioner when he met the second Karmapa, but it was through his connection with the second Karmapa that he received ultimate transmissions and realized emptiness, we can say. They only spent 2 days together. Or Ginpa. Could you talk a bit more about attachment and how it's a poison? I understand how anger, hatred, and aversion are poisons. The feeling is unpleasant, but for attachment, in theory, it's kind of clear, but in practice, it's not that clear. Yeah, attachment is more pleasant, isn't it? The reason why it's more difficult for us to identify desire, attachment as a poison, as something harmful, is because desire and attachment are focused on pleasure and well-being, something comfortable. But desire is something comfortable and pleasant that we don't have, that we want to have. Desire is incited by the fact that we identify something as being pleasant. And when we have identified something as being pleasant, then we experience attraction to it. We have the desire to possess this pleasant thing. and never to be separated from it. That's desire. But what's the negative aspect of desire? It expresses lack. When we identify something as pleasant, suddenly we can't live without it. We can't just feel good as we are. As we are isn't good enough. It destroys, if I might say, the state of mind of contentment, of self-sufficiency, of satisfaction. We are profoundly dissatisfied. The experience of being dissatisfied isn't pleasant at all. There's nothing pleasant about it. It's agitation by nature, a more subtle feeling that's painful than happiness because we are dissatisfied. And this dissatisfaction pushes us to pursue having the thing, and all of the effort that we undertake to get it are also difficult and painful. And once we get the thing that we wanted so much, as we had so much expectation, it rarely lives up to our expectations. And so we are dissatisfied. And when it lives up to our expectations, it doesn't last. It escapes us. And so then we experience the dissatisfaction of having lost it. Desire constantly troubles us. When we look at our inner life, if I may say, what happens in our minds, from moment to moment we have thoughts that follow one another. Even if we try to sit in silence, the thoughts never stop coming up. We think about this, we think about that. And when we really look, what preoccupies us, what incites all of these thoughts, is desire, hatred, jealousy, pride. All of these thoughts are associated with these afflictions. I want this in relation to my job, I want my family, my job, my clothes. All of this is about desire. Somehow, when we talk about dukkha, do you remember the teaching on dukkha? Unhappiness, suffering. We describe several forms of dukkha, unhappiness, that are associated with the different sensations, pleasant, neutral, and unpleasant. There is one dukkha, it's related to these three sensations, but there's another explanation that describes it as dukkha of pain, but then there is also dukkha of change or impermanence, the fact that things don't last, that they change. And there's another one, I'm not sure how to translate it. Though we pursue what we seek, we do not manage to attain it. So what afflicts us all constantly, I think this is what afflicts us all constantly. We want to get what we want, but we don't really know what we want. But we want something. We want something good, something better than others, and we're constantly looking for it, and we're trying to find it in all kinds of things. Relationships, comfort, social status, this and that. There are all kinds of forms, but we never find it. It's never perfect. There's always something that's not right. Right? So that is a form of suffering. I don't remember why we were talking about this again. And so this is part of desire. Desire is always there. There's always an expectation, and thus there's always dissatisfaction. And sometimes it gets clear and we think, oh, that's what I need. And then the dissatisfaction just gets exponentially bigger. And then our perseverance, our effort, what we're ready to endure in order to get it, there can be extraordinary strength. And then we'll struggle through. If we look at the effort that we put to pursue our imagination, it would require just a tiny bit of this effort. If you put it towards enlightenment, you would attain enlightenment. In this sense, the Dharma is very easy. Many people say, I'm not going to manage in this lifetime. I'll learn Tibetan in another lifetime. I don't know how many times I've heard that. Enlightenment, it's for another lifetime. Everybody finds that it's too far, too hard, and gives up. But if we really look, what's difficult and painful is running after pipe dreams, because it's just disappointment. Whereas when we pursue reality, there is a goal that we can attain that won't disappoint us. And if we put just a little effort, just a tiny bit of effort, we can attain it. In any case, it's not as though if we abandon effort toward enlightenment, we're free from making effort. Making effort is our lot. Regardless of what we do, we have to make effort. Look around you. All sentient beings are struggling, are making an effort. They work hard. Fishers, farmers, businessmen, workers, moms, children, old people, animals. Who is serene, peaceful, just happy and setting aside the effort to attain enlightenment? No, everybody's always facing effort. People wake up early in the morning, they work hard, they make an effort, they're endlessly, ceaselessly making effort, but in vain, because in the end, everything they've accumulated will have to be left behind. Wealth, fame, all of the 8 worldly dharmas, they are vain pursuits. Everything is impermanent. The end of every gain is loss, everything that comes together comes apart. This is the end of all things. So if we put all of our effort, all of our energy into that, then of course in the end there will only be disappointment. But if we took a fraction of this effort and we put it in pursuing enlightenment, then it isn't wasted effort. And the Dharma, in contrast with all these other activities, is really easy. It's really so very easy. The methods proposed by the Buddha are gentle methods, and they immediately bring about benefit. It's not like in some religions where you have to sacrifice and suffer, and then when you die, you'll gain your rewards. It's not easy to die. If you put the Dharma into practice now, you'll experience the benefit of it now. Even if you understand just one thing, like cultivating loving kindness toward other sentient beings, even within your own family, there's people, my spouse, my parent, my child, I love them. But profoundly, you don't love them, you desire them, or you're attached to them. They're mine. You have expectations. You're not expressing any true kindness in your relationship. Each becomes a burden for the other. And if you manifest what you express, loving kindness, if you say, oh, I love them, what does it mean to love them? It means wanting their benefit, wanting to accomplish their well-being. Whereas in general, ordinarily in relationships, we try to gain benefit, try to have our own well-being come out of a relationship. This is the difference between desire, attachment, and loving kindness. If you try to offer benefit to others without wanting anything for yourself, there would no longer be any conflict in your family. So understanding the Dharma just a little bit and applying just a little bit in our lives brings about enormous benefit. No need to wait to die to see whether or not the effort that we made in attempting loving kindness will have a benefit for me. We can experience it right away. And the same is true for all practices. Yes, it's an effort. Of course, it's not easy. We have to make an effort to be loving. Of course, we want to be loved more than we want to love. So yes, there you need to make an effort. But this effort that we make has real benefit. Whereas the effort that we make for our attachment, it's just as much effort, except, but at the same time, it's harmful for us. So perhaps there's time for one more question. Rinpoche, you talked about those who put off learning Tibetan until the next life. I feel implicated here. Well, I wasn't thinking about you, but I feel involved because I've been learning a little bit over time, over years, but my will to learn Tibetan is kind of middling because I don't really understand clearly what the benefit is for me on the path in understanding Tibetan. How is understanding Tibetan going to help me on the path to enlightenment? Buddhism in the West is fairly young. if we look at the scale of time, of history, which includes a very long time, it's barely 50 years that Dagpo has been in existence. We rely a lot on Tibetan masters and Tibetan texts. And what I have observed, though we have made a great deal of effort to translate the texts, I've read the Tibetan texts and French and English translations, and I think I've tried to put myself in the shoes of someone who doesn't have access to the source text in Tibetan, and what I realize then is that it's a bit difficult. I find it more difficult because each translator has adopted their own conventions for translating. There's no norms. There are no norms that have been adopted by all of the translators that systematize the translation of a particular term with another term, even for very simple things, like in the sadhana of Avalokiteshvara, some people say loving eyes, some people say Chinrezi, some people say Avalokita, just for something simple like that. It's just to give us an idea, but then there are other terms. Sometimes I don't know what we're talking about. I read a word in French, it's translated, and I always have to think about, okay, but what's the term in Tibetan that's translated by this word in order to understand? And so I think that it's interesting for someone who seriously wants to understand. It's not necessary to fluently speak Tibetan, but to reflect somewhat on the vocabulary of Tibetan, the terms klesha, avijja, the terms that I share with you while explaining my understanding of the text. I think understanding that is already something that can help you clarify, understand correctly. I've also observed the effects of the approximate nature of translation. There's a lot of misunderstanding in relation to the Buddha's teaching. For example, translating affliction, klesha. In the beginning, we translated it a lot with emotions, negative emotions. And so then we think about feeling moved. Suddenly, someone who experiences a little bit of compassion has tears. We think, oh, it's negative, it's an emotion. Or maybe someone who coldly reflects on the death of their neighbor might think, oh, well, it's not an emotion, so it's not negative. There's a lot of misunderstanding that can come from choices in translation. And so I think it's important to really be clear about the meaning of words, what they mean, so that we don't make mistakes. And when we don't have access to the text, we hear the Dharma partially, and then we compensate. We round out our understanding with a lot of suppositions, with our own view on reality, or what we think reality is. We mix it all together, and we create some kind of neo-dharma with our own personal special sauce, and we want to practice with this, but then we don't make any progress, and we don't take responsibility for it. We say, oh, the Dharma is faulty, and we give up. We throw out the baby with the bathwater. And that's why I say that indeed it is an effort to understand the Dharma. We can use whichever signs and sounds we want, but it's important to know the meaning that is designated. Dharmakaya, some people translate it by body of reality. What does body of reality mean? It doesn't mean anything. We should maybe just stick with Dharmakaya. There are choices that need to be made, but regardless of what we call it, we could call it cat with a capital C. But the point is, as long as we know what it designates, in that case, we won't be mistaken. So we need to make an effort to understand the meaning of the words, especially the fundamentals in Buddhism. To start out, understand the Four Noble Truths. It's really a fundamental teaching of Buddhism. And then one of the important major obstacles is an annihilationist view, to think there's only this life. And additionally, we hear, oh, there's no self, so there's also a lot of misunderstanding in relation to that. I'm nothing, and so then there's no negative or positive actions. I'm nothing, I'll always be nothing, so why bother practicing? Why make effort? That's another incorrect interpretation. Even with non-self, with emptiness, all of these terms, we put a meaning to them that isn't the meaning of the words. Therefore, it's important to have a certain humility, to know that I don't know, and so I'm really going to make effort to try to understand as clearly as possible. In this sense, it's positive to look at the source languages, to ask ourselves when we read a translation, what is it translating? What are the words? What are the specific definitions? And sometimes the translator themselves hasn't understood the text and has interpreted it, and that can also lead to mistakes. So we need to be careful. We have a couple more minutes. One more question. Maybe it's a bit off the subject, but in the previous session you talked about a space between thoughts. I'm trying, but what occurs, what I see is that it's a continuous flow, like an observer. But then it's like I'm trying to look for something, and then I think, no, but I see the thought, and then I think, oh, I'm trying to look for something. I feel like there's a big magma, a permanent flow. In this case, don't try to grasp. A thought arises and passes. And before another thought arises, how is mind at this moment? Without trying to grasp it, without trying to describe it. Just stay there. While remaining very conscious, very aware. There's no representation or anything to grasp. The difficulty is that for us ordinarily, knowing means grasping. We feel like if I'm going to know something, then there's something to grasp. There's nothing to grasp. It's just letting the innate reality of our mind manifest and remain there without going into elaborations or afflictions of any kind. for this, we have to leave grasping aside. Try it like that. When I count to 21, I'd say, okay, I got to do 21. That's how much you got to do for the breathing cycles. But the number is troubling for me because I'm not focusing on the breathing in and breathing out. Try something else. Take a mala in the beginning, count 21 beads. Count 21. And then after, just concentrate. Place your attention on the cycle of breathing. Feel the exhalation going out, the inhalation going in. And then move one bead instead of thinking one. The idea is just to see over time. In the beginning, in this type of shamatha, what we're trying to cultivate is our ability to retain, meaning not falling into forgetting. Ordinarily, our mind is agitated. How does it work? It's always selecting an object. A visible object, an olfactory object, an auditory object, and then attributing meaning, concepts, etc. It's always grasping something. And so it's always grasping something and then ungrasping it to grasp something else. And this ungrasping to grasp something else is what we can call forgetting. We forget something, we get uninterested in something to get interested in something else. We're always on the hunt, in a sense. So here, to begin, we're developing the capacity to not get disinterested, not ungrasp, not forget. The ultimate goal is not necessarily cultivating breathing. The cycles of breathing are a support, but what we want is not to turn away from this. This support is the support that we apply our attention to. We keep our memory on. We don't forget our breath. For example, if somebody gives you a keyword, a password for the Wi-Fi, you repeat it again and again until you can sit down and type it. Well, similarly, you come back again and again and again to your breathing so that you don't forget it. What you're cultivating is particularly the capacity to remain present. And once you are present, then you have this quality, this capacity to realize, to notice when mind starts thinking about something else, when it starts wandering, when it starts getting agitated, when it starts getting distracted. Once you have this capacity, you notice it immediately because your attention is on your breath. But if forgetting is there, you don't even notice the train of thoughts that you've had. If you ask yourself, what brought me to this thought? If you try to go backwards to follow the train, you don't even remember. You don't even remember what led you here. You've forgotten the thing before and forgotten the thing before, and there was another thought before and another thinking of another thought after. Forgetting, from forgetting comes the inability to become aware, to notice the fact that we're grasping something else. We don't even see distraction or agitation arising. when we retain, in Sanskrit, smrti, tenpa in Tibetan, is retaining. And Shambarshan, Shishin in Tibetan, is noticing, agitation, etc. So here, once we're starting out, you count 1, 2, and you notice distraction. And if distraction arises, what do we do? We don't think, oh, I'm bad, I got distracted, I'm lame. No need to think like that. I don't want you to come here, thoughts. No, that doesn't work either. Simply, when the thought arises, we don't follow it and we don't reject it. We stay on our breath and let the mind rest with the breath. Remain with the breath. So in the beginning, we're cultivating this capacity to retain. And once we've developed this capacity to remain present, then the mind's ability to get closer to serenity, to calm, becomes manifest. So in terms of the methodology, we need to look at it this way. But the previous question was much more profound, much more important. So if you manage to see in between two thoughts without grasping, that can be the support, never forgetting that. We can conclude here for this morning. Thank you very much for your attention.
Di tamche ziba nye tonne nyebe ranam pamche ne cheka nanche balab troba sibe tsole drowa sho chanchu simcho rimboche mache banam chi jurchi chepa nyamba mepa tang konne kondo pewa sho.